I want to take you, though, back to Queensland. We have the comments into the newsroom now from Opposition Leader Sussan Ley, who's been speaking to the media.
Thank you very much indeed, Ted. It's terrific to be here with you, my Deputy Leader, an outstanding representative not just of the communities in your electorate of Fairfax, but indeed, as you point out, as we head into a new year, Australians who are struggling everywhere with the cost of living crisis. But today, we have been so privileged to meet members of your local Jewish community, extraordinary Australians in their own right, proud Jews, and proud of what their community, their society has contributed to Australia since the First Fleet. But more importantly, giving us one clear, articulate message about calling a Commonwealth Royal Commission. Because only a Commonwealth Royal Commission can address what we have seen go so badly wrong in this country, particularly since October the 7th, 2023. Now, there is unity across Australia in calling for this Commonwealth Royal Commission. And the Prime Minister asked for unity. He's been asking for unity since December the 14th. He really does have unity of purpose and unity of message to call this Commonwealth Royal Commission. This week, we saw senior members of the defence, intelligence and security community step forward. And when people who have given their lives for the safety of this country are giving the strong message about a Commonwealth Royal Commission, it really is time for this Prime Minister to listen. And those leaders have joined so many more every day, demanding in this time of national crisis that we have a response in Australia's national interest. One that we're always reminded is beyond politics, but is just so, so important. And the question remains. I've been asking it pretty much every day. What is the Prime Minister hiding, and why is he not listening? Now, we've seen the reports that he's going to backflip. He's going to announce a Commonwealth Royal Commission. He's working out some other arrangements. Enough. Stand up today, Prime Minister. Call this Commonwealth Royal Commission. And we have set 3 important tests, and we expect to see them met. This Royal Commission has to be in close consultation with the Jewish community, who were the victims of this terror attack, along with every fair-minded Australian. The close consultation has been missing, but it needs to start with respect to the Royal Commission. The Royal Commission has to deliver accountability of the executive. Ministers of the Crown need to be effectively in the dock, asked the questions. What warnings were you given? What were you told? What did you do in response to those warnings, and what did you not do? The second thing that this Royal Commission needs to contain and deliver is a reckoning with antisemitism and radical Islamic extremism. Because unless we confront those with clear eyes, we won't address what we have seen in such unacceptable and devastating terms across every corner of Australian society. And third, we need to see 3 Royal Commissioners, because this is important, this is significant, and there is much work to do. And it can be done effectively by 3 commissioners. One with the appropriate senior judicial background. The second, an expert in national security, because clearly national security features here. And thirdly, a member of the Jewish community who is an expert on anti-Semitism. Only this model is the one that we know will answer the call for unity, the call for purpose. And when you listen to those calls, more Australians, millions of ordinary Australians too, adding their names every day, the problem is not the argument. The problem is not the message. The problem is the Prime Minister. Now, he's talking about returning to Parliament. We don't have a date. And if we do return before Australia Day, we won't be returning early, we'll be returning late. We should have already been in the National Parliament addressing this national crisis. And what I want to make clear is that changes to hate speech laws are about one thing and one thing only: about removing radical Islamic extremism and eradicating anti-Semitism. And my message to those who preach hatred, who preach radical Islam, who incite violence, who glorify terrorism, if you are a non-Australian citizen, you will be deported. If you are an Australian citizen, you will be arrested. We need to return to Parliament, and we need to do this work urgently in the interests of communities across this country. Happy to take questions.
Leader, would you support Virginia Bell being appointed Commissioner, as reports suggest she may be?
It's important that whoever the commissioners are, and it's important that there are three, the Jewish community is satisfied with those individuals and, most importantly, has been closely and carefully consulted on those people. That's what the Prime Minister needs to do. That's what the Prime Minister clearly is not doing right now, or he would be announcing what we all know he should be right now.
And what about Virginia Bell, as the report suggests?
I won't be commenting on individuals, because the important issue here is what the Jewish community believes. This is a community that was targeted for its identity. People who terrorist shooters took aim at because of who they are. Now, that community has suffered extraordinarily since December the 14th. But we have been in touch with them and heard about what they have suffered and experienced. Unacceptable to any Australian in this country. We heard examples today, just sitting around a coffee table here. Totally unacceptable. This is the community that needs to be consulted with, and they need to be satisfied with the choice of Royal Commissioners.
Again, going by reports, reports of a joint state and Commonwealth Royal Commission, would you support that model?
We've put forward a model. It's detailed. It's necessarily detailed because we have to examine the scourge of anti-Semitism in every corner of this country, across state jurisdictions, across civil society, across agencies, and in communities. So that's central, as well, of course, to what this Royal Commission needs to do to investigate agencies, intelligence sharing, counter-terrorism measures, and the circumstances of the attack itself. But it needs to be so much more broad than that, which is why a Commonwealth Royal Commission is the only path forward. And any other models that are being discussed need to meet our tests and what we have already put forward. And I've said to the Prime Minister that I'm happy to sit down and refine our draft terms of reference. They're very good terms of reference. We have consulted with the Jewish community.
Will you offer bipartisanship regardless of who they choose and what model it is?
It's important that any model meet the three tests that I have set out. We are here because this country is facing a national crisis with anti-Semitism and radical Islamic extremism. So we will be examining anything that comes forward, but central always is the consultation, close and careful, with the Jewish community that has been the target of this attack.
With respect, that doesn't quite answer the question. If they propose a model as this is what is going to happen, will you support it?
Well, I don't think you'd expect me to deal in those sorts of hypotheticals. We've set our tests, we've made our position clear. The Prime Minister needs to step forward, and Australia is waiting.
Would you guarantee support, though, to Labor and Anthony Albanese in this process of the Royal Commission and passing new laws in response on that?
I didn't quite catch that question. Could you repeat it?
Sorry, would you guarantee support to Labor and Anthony Albanese to ensure a quick process for a Royal Commission and passing new laws in response to that?
Well, the quickest possible process would have included us going back to Parliament before Christmas. We didn't, and every day that we're not sitting in the National Parliament is a day when we should be there, because this is important. It is critical to national security, to the scourge of anti-Semitism rising unacceptably across this country, and towards addressing radical Islamic extremism and eradicating anti-Semitism. So we do want to be constructive. We do not want to see delays, but we have to get the legislation right, and that is the most important thing.
Do you think Virginia Bell would be an appropriate pick to lead the Royal Commission?
I'm not commenting on individuals, but what I am saying is that the Jewish community should be consulted. They have been the target of this lethal shooting, and they need to be closely and carefully consulted in the Royal Commissioners themselves. And we know there needs to be 3, and the terms of reference. So we look forward to the Prime Minister. He's always had the power to act on anti-Semitism. He has the power today. Australians are calling out for this Commonwealth Royal Commission. Why is Anthony Albanese not listening? What is he hiding?
What are your thoughts on Josh Frydenberg's rejection of the Virginia Bell notion?
Well, individuals will make their own comments, and so they should. And I just want to say about Josh, an outstanding former colleague, a clear leader in this space when it comes to the important issues that the country is confronting.
Who specifically would you like to see, or the coalition like to see, lead the Royal Commission?
Well, if you were listening to my earlier answers, this is something that needs close and careful consultation with the Jewish community. And they stand ready, and I'm not sure what conversations the Prime Minister may be having with them, but clearly not the right ones, or he'd be calling the Commonwealth Royal Commission today.
The UK and France have announced they'll send troops to Ukraine in the event of a peace deal. Would you like to see the government do the same?
Well, it's important that we support Ukraine in Russia's illegal and immoral occupation of that country. We stand with Ukraine, we stand with Australians who come from that war-torn part of the world, and we will always push this government to step up and do more.
Perhaps just on the weather, the possible cyclone this weekend. Bureau of Meteorology has come under a fair bit of flack in the last couple of months. Do you have confidence in their ability to notify the public of any threats?
Thank you for mentioning the severe weather event, because after leaving this part of the country, I am heading to Richmond, to Julia Creek, and to parts of flooded far north Queensland, and I know that there is an incredibly confronting situation for our farmers, for our communities, for the amazing local governments. I've spoken to the mayors, I'm in touch with them, I'm hearing almost daily what this crisis that is unfolding on the ground means for our farmers. I will go there with one aim in mind, and that is to make sure that the communities in these regions get the support that they need from the Commonwealth Government. We know that with floods, it's a long way in, but it's a long way out when it comes to recovery. And for farmers who care deeply for their livestock, the welfare of their animals, and for the future of their families, this is truly heartbreaking. And all Australians must have these communities in their hearts and in their minds as we go forward and deal with this together. Because it can feel, when you are in outback Queensland, a long, long way from where many of the decisions are made. But my team and I will always be there, standing with those farmers and those flood-affected communities, and I look forward to seeing them. With respect to the Bureau of Meteorology, there are always tests for the Bureau. They do have to get this right, and I know that flood gauges and forecasting are very much part of the conversation when there has been a flood event, so I look forward to hearing directly from the communities and the local governments as they talk about how we can recover, but also how we can respond in a way that builds back better.
Last question, is the opposition's immigration policy ready, and when we get to see it?
The most important thing with respect to immigration right now is what I have talked about since the Bondi terror attack. And obviously there are further principles around our immigration policy, but we are dealing with a national crisis right now, and there are aspects of immigration policy that this government needs to consider very carefully, because part of our approach is if people are coming to Australia from terrorist enclaves, then we can't just accept that they are not coming into this country with Jewish hatred in their hearts. And we've made it very clear that with respect to all of the acts of Parliament that relate to this issue, the message has to be coming out of our national Parliament that if you preach radical Islamic hatred, if you incite violence and glorify terrorism, and you are an Australian citizen, you'll be arrested. If you're not an Australian citizen, you'll be deported. And if you want to come to this country, we need measures to make sure that you don't. Thank you.
Opposition Leader Sussan Ley there on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland. She's speaking about this ongoing push for the Prime Minister to hold a Royal Commission into anti-Semitism. In fact, Sussan Ley demanding he stand up and call that today. The Coalition has laid out their framework on what they would like to see. Sussan Ley, though, not weighing in on who should be the Commissioner, as we see these reports about former Justice Virginia Bell being the preferred candidate for Labor to run the Royal Commission. Sussan Ley saying instead it's important that the Jewish communities are satisfied and consulted on who will be the Commissioner. We heard Josh Frydenberg, the former Treasurer, though, saying that former Justice Bell would be unthinkable as the person to run the Royal Commission. We will see where this lands when we hear from the Prime Minister, maybe today or potentially in coming days.